U.S. President Donald Trump lashed out at European countries for rejecting help to safeguard the Strait of Hormuz, and said Washington no longer needs help from other allies, including South Korea. Two of Iran's most senior security figures have been killed in recent airstrikes by Israel, further raising tensions in the region. Iran's new supreme leader Mojtaba Khamenei has vowed revenge and has reportedly rejected international calls for de-escalation. South Korea added 234,000 jobs in February, marking the fastest on-year growth in 5 months. But despite the overall rise in the labor market, the youth unemployment rate reached its highest level for the month in 5 years. Hello and thanks for joining us on Arirang News. We begin today with U.S. President Donald Trump showing a furious reaction to the rejection and reluctance from allied countries to send naval support to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, a senior official in his administration has resigned over Washington's conflict with Tehran. Our Oh Soo-young starts us off.
US President Donald Trump lashed out at allies after many refused or held back on his call to send warships to help secure the Strait of Hormuz. Posting on Truth Social, Trump declared America no longer needs or desires NATO's assistance, and likewise Japan, Australia and South Korea. He stated the US does not need the help of anyone, saying it is, quote, by far the most powerful country anywhere in the world. The outburst came on Tuesday after Trump had spent the previous days pressing allies to send their navies to the Strait of Hormuz, after Iran effectively closed the waterway in retaliation for US-Israeli attacks.
So, I think NATO's making a very foolish mistake, and I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there.
France has drawn the clearest line. President Emmanuel Macron said Paris would never take part in operations to reopen the Strait of Hormuz in the current context, stressing that France was not party to the conflict. Australia's Transport Minister Catherine King bluntly said Canberra will not be sending a ship to the strait. Japan was more guarded but no more willing. Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi said there had been no decisions whatsoever on dispatching escort ships, and that Tokyo was still considering what it could do within its legal framework. South Korea has said it did not receive an official request, while its lawmakers have indicated a deployment would require legislative approval. Meanwhile, the United Arab Emirates has shown more openness. A senior Emirati official said on Tuesday that Abu Dhabi could join an international effort to secure the strait. Split reactions are also emerging from within Washington. On Tuesday, Joe Kent, the head of the National Counterterrorism Center, resigned over the war, becoming the first senior Trump official known to quit over the conflict. In his resignation letter, Kent wrote that Iran posed no imminent threat to the US and said he could not support the war in good conscience. Oh Soo-young, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Israel says it has killed 2 of Iran's top security figures in fresh airstrikes as tensions in the Middle East continue to escalate. Iran's new supreme leader is vowing revenge and rejecting calls for de-escalation. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Israel says 2 of Iran's most senior security figures have been killed in recent airstrikes, marking a major escalation in the ongoing conflict. According to Israeli officials on Tuesday, Ali Larijani, described as Iran's top security official, and Gholam Reza Soleimani, head of the paramilitary Basij force, were killed in separate U.S.-Israeli strikes. Iran has since confirmed the deaths of both men. The Israel Defense Forces said its Air Force carried out what it called a precise strike near Tehran on Monday night that killed Larijani. Israeli officials claimed that following the assassination of former Supreme Leader Ayatollah al-Khamenei in late February, Larijani had effectively taken a leading role in directing Iran's military response against Israel and its regional allies. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps also confirmed the death of Basij commander Gholam Reza Soleimani, describing him as a veteran military leader who played a key role in past conflicts, including the Iran-Iraq War, and in mobilizing public support for the regime. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the killings are part of a broader campaign to weaken what he called Iran's terror-spreading leadership, warning that Israel still has many more surprises ahead.
There is cooperation between our air forces and naval forces between me and President Trump and his people. We will assist both with indirect attacks, which generate immense pressure on the Iranian regime, and with direct actions. There are many more surprises.
Meanwhile, Iran's newly appointed supreme leader, Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, has reportedly rejected international calls for de-escalation. A senior Iranian official said he is demanding that both Israel and the United States be brought to their knees before any negotiations can take place, signaling a hardening stance as tensions continue to rise. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Following reports that the U.S. is moving parts of Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System from South Korea, a senior Pentagon official has said the ability to redeploy defense assets quickly is a tremendous strength. Speaking at a House Foreign Affairs Committee hearing on Tuesday, Under Secretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment Michael Duffy addressed concerns that parts of the system could be moved to the Middle East amid the ongoing war with Iran. He said the United States prioritizes sending military resources to areas of the most urgent need, but declined to comment on how long any specific redeployment might last. He also reaffirmed Washington's commitment to its security alliance with Seoul. So with the war in the Middle East now into its third week, President Lee Jae-myung has urged his officials to prepare for the worst-case scenarios from the prolonged conflict. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min reports.
Preparing for the worst-case scenarios stemming from a possible prolonged conflict in the Middle East. That was the message from President Lee Jae-myung on Tuesday as he presided over the weekly cabinet meeting at the government complex in Sejong, noting that oil prices have started to stabilize since a price cap was implemented. But he warned of further uncertainties.
중동 상황이 당초 예상을 뛰어넘는 방향으로 확대되고 있습니다. 현재와 같은 양상이라면 잠시 진정됐던 석유 가격이 다시 불안정해지고 민생 전반에 가해질 충격도 커지게 될 것 같습니다.
He called on officials to supervise prices on site to make sure the price cap is actually reflected at the gas pumps, as some cases have been reported where oil refiners and gas stations raised prices despite the new rule.
We will impose strict punishment on any violation of the oil price cap and the false reporting of supply prices.
On top of that, President Lee emphasized the need to find alternative energy supplies.
UAE에서 추가 원유를 확보했던 것처럼 우리의 외교 역량과 자산을 총동원해서 안정적인 추가 대체 공급선 발굴에 총력을 기울여야 되겠습니다.
He mentioned the possibility of temporarily limiting the use of private vehicles and placing export controls on certain items if necessary. He also instructed the cabinet to swiftly organize an extra budget.
전쟁 추경이 신속하게 집행될 수 있도록 다각도로 노력해 주시기 바랍니다. 결국은 소득 지원 정책을 안 할 수가 없을 것 같은데 이번 추경을 한다면 그럴 때도 아주 지방에 더 대대적으로 할 수 있게.
Balancing out development across all regions of the country was also on the agenda as the meeting took place in the administrative city of Sejong. Additionally, the cabinet approved a bill aimed at implementing U.S. investment worth $350 billion, for which a strategic investment corporation will be established. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
And amid growing shortages linked to the Middle East crisis, South Korea will temporarily designate naptha, a raw material used by the petrochemical industry, as an economic security item this week, enabling the government to provide supply chain support. At an emergency economic ministers meeting on Wednesday, Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Koo Yoon-chul said timing is critical in responding to a crisis and pledged to immediately mobilize all available policy tools. He noted that 54% of Korea's naphtha imports pass through the Strait of Hormuz and said the government would closely monitor supply conditions, secure alternative import routes, and consider export restrictions if necessary. Koo also says Seoul would expand financial support worth roughly $1 billion for affected companies through a new stabilization fund. And President Lee Jae-myung has sent letters of appreciation to foreign leaders for their help in evacuating Koreans from the Middle East. The Blue House says he sent letters on Tuesday to Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, Qatari Emir Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud. Hundreds of South Koreans returned home earlier this month from Riyadh and Doha on civil and military planes, as well as a Japanese charter flight. Employment in South Korea saw its biggest gain in 5 months in February, with the number of people with jobs up by 234,000 on-year. Data released by the Ministry of Data and Statistics on Wednesday showed total employment reached 28.41 million. However, employment among young people fell by 146,000, raising the unemployment rate for that group to 7.7%, the highest for any February in 5 years. Employment among those aged 60 and older rose by 287,000. Health and social welfare services led the increase, while the manufacturing and construction sectors remained weak with continued declines. Total unemployment rose 0.2 percentage points to 3.4%. The South Korean government will raise its terror alert level in central Seoul ahead of BTS' upcoming concert this weekend. Authorities say the alert will be elevated from attention to caution in the Chungno and Chung districts from Thursday midnight through Saturday. The move comes as hundreds of thousands of fans are expected to gather at Gwanghwamun Square for the performance. Officials say the decision reflects heightened global security concerns and the need to prepare for large-scale public events. Security measures, including patrols and joint emergency response systems, will also be strengthened to ensure public safety. And BLACKPINK's Jisoo is topping global streaming charts with her latest K-drama series, Boyfriend on Demand. Netflix said Wednesday the romantic comedy ranked #1 on its weekly non-English TV charts. It drew 4.8 million views for the week ending March 15, topping the list in 47 countries. The 10-part series follows Mire, webtoon producer who turns to a virtual dating subscription service in search of romance. It has gained attention for its star-studded cast, including Seo In-guk, and special appearances made by renowned actors such as Heo Kang-jun and Lee Jae-wook. A Korean flag that contains the spirit of restoring independence has returned to its home, where a new museum has opened in South Korea's southern Namdo province. Our Choi Young has more.
From Naju, Jeollanam-do province, where General Kim Cheon-il first raised a righteous army during the Imjin War, to the Seokdae-do battlefield in Changheung, the site of the Donghak peasant army's final heroic resistance at the end of the Joseon dynasty. A new museum has been completed, offering a comprehensive look at the storied history of the Namdo Righteous Armies in one location. To mark the museum's opening, the Bulwonbok Taegukgi has returned to its home. Used by Army Commander Go Kwang-sun in Gure during the early 1900s, the flag bears the poignant inscription Bulwonbok, meaning independence shall be restored soon.
This is a site for a living history education to remember and pass down the noble spirit of righteous soldiers.
Starting with a sculpture depicting the Dangsado Lighthouse Raid, the event that established Wando's Soando Island as one of the 3 major sites of the anti-Japanese movement, the museum exhibits a total of over 3,000 historical artifacts. Through multi-dimensional exhibits and immersive media, the museum showcases a timeline spanning from the 1555 Ulmyo Webyeon, the first Japanese pirate invasion, through the Imjin and Cheongyu Wars, to the anti-Japanese struggles at the end of the Joseon dynasty. The exterior wall of the Namdo Righteous Army Memorial Museum, named the Space of Metaphor, features a facade panel designed to recreate the metallic roar and shouts of 33,000 Namdo soldiers charging into battle. Integrated with the National Naju Museum, the museum is expected to become a landmark attraction for the year of visiting Naju. Cha Yoon-kyung, Arirang News.
This is The World Now, bringing you everything you need to know from around the globe. Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky and British Prime Minister Keir Starmer signed a new defense industry agreement in London on Tuesday to increase the supply of drones and AI technology. During the meeting at 10 Downing Street, President Zelensky labeled the regimes in Russia and Iran, quote, brothers in hatred and, quote, brothers in weapons. He urged Western allies to keep their focus on Ukraine despite the conflict in the Middle East. The signed agreement links Ukraine's drone expertise with the UK's manufacturing strength to boost battlefield capabilities. Prime Minister Starmer stated that the international community must ensure President Vladimir Putin does not benefit from shifting global attention. Colombian President Gustavo Petro announced on Tuesday that security forces discovered the remains of 27 people near the country's southern border following recent bombings in the region by Ecuador. The discovery occurred after Ecuadorian President Daniel Noboa ordered strikes against criminal organizations operating in the border region. President Noboa said that the Ecuadorian military targeted drug trafficking hideouts located strictly within Ecuadorian territory. President Petro initially questioned the location of the strikes and later clarified that he did not authorize the bombings on the Colombian side. The Congo Republic's Electoral Commission on Tuesday declared President Denis Sassou Nguesso the winner of the national election with nearly 95% of the vote. This victory grants the 82-year-old incumbent a new 5-year term, extending his tenure that began in 1979. Official data reported voter turnout at 84%, although opposition groups questioned the figures and boycotted the process due to transparency concerns. Sassou Nguesso's closest challenger received less than 2% of the total vote. Under current constitutional rules, this is expected to be the president's final term in office. In the U.S., a suspected meteor fell over the Cleveland area on Tuesday morning, creating a visible fireball and a sonic boom that shook residential buildings. The American Meteor Society documented sightings of the object from Wisconsin to Maryland at approximately 9 a.m. local time. Experts from the National Weather Service in Cleveland confirmed that they felt vibrations from the atmospheric entry, but found no immediate evidence of fallen debris. While small meteors enter the atmosphere daily, the brightness of this event allowed security cameras to capture the descent in daylight. Chu Ji-han, Arirang News.
Most regions woke up to spring rain this morning. And as for rainfall, mountainous regions on Jeju Island could see over 60 millimeters and 10 to 30 millimeters for the southern coast, but most of the central areas will get 5 to 10 millimeters of lighter rain. But even with the rain, air quality is still a bit of a concern for central regions. Not to mention, yesterday's dust coverage brought itchy eyes and sore throats to many. And today's rain will help clear things out in the southern regions, but dust will stick around a bit longer for central parts of Korea. And along with rain and cloudy skies, afternoon highs will be 4 to 5 degrees lower than yesterday, getting up to 11 degrees Celsius here in the capital. Taegu only gets up to 12 degrees. And once the rain moves out by the evening, we're looking at sunnier skies returning tomorrow. But with that, classic spring temperature swings will continue in most parts of Korea.
That's all we have for today's noon edition of Arirang News. Thank you for watching. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned.